You know what I love? A good sci-fi movie, and for me, the best of them expertly blend modern-day ideas into futuristic settings. And this week's movie seeks to explore how we often use technology in ways that it was not created for. Let's talk about Mickey 17. So it's kind of hard to talk about this movie without calling out that it's profoundly strange, which comes as no surprise. I mean, the director did win an Oscar for the movie Parasite, but he also directed another sci-fi film called Snowpiercer. And I would use the word quirky to describe his style, and I would also use that to describe Mickey 17. It has a very basic and straightforward story, but it's presented in an obtuse way. And I would compare it to Everything Everywhere All at Once in that regard. Anyone can watch and understand that film, but the journey to get there is pretty weird, and I can see that turning off a lot of viewers just because of how strange it is. But let's get started with a little bit of backstory. So Mickey is this down-on-his-luck man whose best friend gets them into a bad deal with a loan shark, and when it comes time to pay up, they decide instead they're gonna flee Earth. But leaving Earth isn't easy, and there's a lot of people who are looking to start a new life on a colony in space. So desperate to make it off-world before the loan shark catches up with him, Mickey signs up to be an expendable. And he doesn't read the paperwork. So what are expendables? They're a revolutionary new type of worker who can do any life-threatening job because if the job results in a loss of life, they're just printed out again. And I mean that quite literally. There are these like giant, massive, human-sized printers and his body gets stuck in there and it's like trying to get him out. It's pretty ridiculous, but it's kind of a funny visual. So once he arrives at his new home planet, which is called Niflheim, Mickey 17 manages to fall into a pit, which he does that a lot in this movie, and he gets crushed by a giant bug creature. So that's when we decide to have a big flashback and we show what happened to the previous 16 Mickeys. Unfortunately, most of them were experimented on so they could develop vaccines that can counter their new planet's bacteria and viruses and things like that. And eventually we see that Mickey 17 actually survived the bug attack and he heads back home to his home base only to discover that a Mickey 18 has already been printed. And we quickly learn that Mickey 18 is much more aggressive than 17. He's basically a completely different person. He's kind of a psychopath. And the two basically begin fighting over their girlfriend, and they also have to stay hidden because in this world, duplicates are against the law. So that's a big deal. And while all this is happening, they have this clueless leader, this cult leader guy who is attempting to exterminate a friendly indigenous species of cute fuzzy bug creatures using this nerve gas that they created while testing things on Mickey. This film is adapted from a book titled Mickey 7, and I think it's pretty clear that the director wanted to add his own spin on the project, his own little flares. And some of this for me made the movie feel like it was at odds with itself, especially the social commentary. I found it to be incredibly on the nose to the point where it was honestly distracting. And while a movie like Everything Everywhere is also incredibly weird with its dangerous bagels and its hot dog fingers, I feel like the story is grounded by the relationship between the mother and her daughter. And it's heartwarming. But Mickey 17 just doesn't really have that. Part of the issue for me is that Mickey comes off like a child who needs constant protection. He's basically failing his way to victory through various plot contrivances. Mickey's relationship with his partner, that's supposed to be the heart of the movie, but she comes off more like an overprotective mother, which makes the relationship appear to have this kind of creepy, uneven power dynamic. And for me, that's highlighted no better than a scene where in the middle of the movie, she gets a little too excited that all of a sudden there's two Mickeys that she could share a bed with. And before I wrap this up, I just want to quickly chat about the film's villain, played by Mark Ruffalo, you know, Hulkman. He's a failed politician with delusions of grandeur named Kenneth Marshall. In Marshall's vein, he's pompous, he's clueless. He's the reason that the Expendables are used for labor the way that they are. He joins this cult religion so that he can be the leader of the colony mission. He hires a man who looks like friggin' Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins to follow him around with a camera and film everything that he does. He's got a talk show where he tries to convince the colonists that he knows what he's doing, which of course he doesn't. He's also a coward. He bends to every whim of his wife. His wife is his own kind of weird, strange character. In her own regard, she's spending most of the movie obsessing over making the perfect sauce for some reason. And as you can imagine, Marshall isn't very smart, which kind of makes his battle with Mickey quite low stakes, because Mickey's not very smart either, to be honest. I don't really want to root for either of them because they're both kind of just man babies who need constant coddling. The best way to describe Mickey 17 for me is that it's an art film disguised as a blockbuster. The trailer would have you believe that there's like a ton of action and excitement, but in reality, the movie's more of a character piece with a lot of unsubtle social commentary. If you like movies that are a bit slower and more contemplative with strange, unexplained elements like a man in a giant pigeon costume for some reason, you might enjoy Mickey 17. But if you're looking for a more straightforward sci-fi experience, something more like last year's Dune 2, for example, I don't think this is really going to scratch that itch for you. Personally, I kind of landed on the middle with this one. Nothing about the world was intriguing enough to make me want to like jump in and deeply analyze everything in it like I would some other sci-fi films like Blade Runner, for example. But on the flip side, I still enjoyed the journey enough that I wasn't disengaged while I was watching it. And I think a lot of that is to the credit of the cast. They put a really good cast together. And I'll be honest with you, the bug creatures were cute and fuzzy, so that didn't hurt either.
I don't like you, but I'm you.
But that's just my opinion. Did you see Mickey 17? If you did, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll see y'all next time.